Okay, good evening, folks. This is Tom Schoen. I'm here with Kimberly Grisaffi and Bradley Richland. Kimberly is our head of professional services at Eaglet in the US and North America, and Bradley is a recent purchaser of an Eaglet ESP about Bradley, about three months ago?
Yeah, just about 3 months ago, yes.
Okay. And he towards the end of this webinar, he will go through his experience, his impressions, how he uses it. I think that'll be very informative. But between then and now, I'm going to go over scleral topography. Then I'm going to give you a quick intro to the ESP. Then I'm going to turn it over to Kimberly, and she's going to go through how you get an image acquired, how you start using the software, how you would relay the information to a lab, and then she'll probably review a common but complex case, maybe pinguecula. Then Brad's going to get up and go over a case or two, talk about the benefits that he sees to his practice, and a little bit about his anticipated first fit success rate. And then I'll be back to wind up with the lens list. The list of designs that we have in the system is pretty extensive. One of the things that we like to talk about and promote is the fact that we consider ourselves lab neutral. Lab neutrality means that we'll work with anybody that wants to work with us. And we now have over 35 lens designs in the system. Then I'll quickly go through a return on investment calculation and then talk about next steps. So with that, let's talk a little bit about scleral topography. And this is just from me and my impressions. I clearly believe after the Global Specialty Lens Symposium last January, I walked away thinking that this was clearly, I believe, the future of specialty fitting, that the more we learn about the sclera in particular, the more we need designs that take that into consideration, and the more we'll need a scleral topographer to see what's going on in individual patient sclera. So I see this as a loop. This is going to continue, and over the next 3 to 5 years, I think the world's going to change. We're going to learn about scleras. There's going to be more design advancement, and then you'll be back to needing scleral topography. Then we'll learn more, then more designs, blah, blah, blah. So I think this world's going to change. And to that point, I'm going to predict that diagnostic lenses will be historical trivia in 5 years. I think in 5 years, so in 2024, at the Global Specialty Lens Symposium, come by and see if you agree with me that this was a 5-year prophecy that people are going to be laughing about. Do you remember those trial lenses we used to use? Remember those diagnostics we used to use? I really think that's what's going to happen. And then on top of all that, there was tremendous interest in scleral topography and also the Eaglet ESP in particular last January at the GSLS from both fitters and labs. So I think the world is going to head in the right direction for us, and I think that you guys have made the right decision by getting on the webinar tonight. So a little bit about the Eaglet eye service profile, or how it works and what it does. So we utilize profilometry, and essentially what that does is take reflective light and capture it. We use fluorescein to capture the reflection, and we can often get up to 20 millimeter scan of the eye surface. So well beyond the cornea, deeply into the sclera, and well within the range of most modern scleral lenses that are typically, 18 millimeters and under. I mean, there's a bunch of other stuff, but most of them are 18 or less. This device is a single shot device. We don't use any stitching. We don't take 3 images and plug them together. You get one shot by straight ahead gaze, and Kim's going to show you how to do this. And so you don't have to worry about getting 3 good shots at different gazes. It's a single shot direct gaze. We acquire 500,000 data points. That provides accuracy to 2 microns on the cornea and 10 microns on the sclera. And again, we pride ourselves in lab neutrality, which means we have over 35 lens designs across 17 labs currently in the system, and it's growing. I'll touch on that later on tonight. And with that, I am going to turn it over to Kimberly, and she can take it from here.
Okay, can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
If anybody can't hear me, the thing is we've just discovered is there's not a call-in number that we know of. You'll have to we can maybe send a recorded version of this to you. Just let us know. So I'm going to share my screen. Give me just a second. All right. All right, can everybody see my screen?
Not yet.
Tom, no, you can't see it yet? All right, actions, enable screen sharing. Okay, this should do it.
Something's happened. Yes, ma'am.
All righty. Okay, so Tom has introduced the Eaglet pretty well. We have, I'm not going to repeat everything he has said, but I will go over some of the other things that he mentioned just in more detail. Scleral topography is going to be really the wave of the future. None of us really can imagine fitting corneal lenses without a corneal topographer. So this is kind of the same way we're starting to think about scleral lenses. And scleral topography does take a lot of the guesswork out of your fitting process. You can easily detect things from just an image that you would normally take several lenses to get to. So you're still making those clinical decisions, but you're getting there so much faster by just having this image. Let me see, I'm getting a message to go full screen here. It looks on my end like it is in full screen. Okay. Whenever you're able to make those decisions much faster, you can look at things like knowing immediately what type of fitting set you want to use, or what kind of lens you want to order. If you're going to need, for instance, a toric fitting set, or maybe something that's available in a microvault, or even going to your more premium types of lenses. So doing those things allows you to save a lot of chair time, saves you from having to spend the time it takes to reorder, the fees involved in reorders and remakes, and those non-revenue follow-up appointments. So profilometry, again, like Tom explained, this is quick flash photography. This is not a placido disc type of instrument. So we do have to use fluorescein to make the sclera glow, so to speak. I know actually Dr. Richland says something like that it's the camera only sees yellow, and that's a really good way to put it, because you do have to get a lot of fluorescein in the eye. But when we do, we have the digital camera, a couple of projectors that are shining this crisscross line pattern onto the eye. And where you see those lines there, that's where we're collecting data. The process to take it from just a picture and transform it into a 3D height map is called Fourier transform. Here is sort of the process of taking a couple of different channels and turning them into one image. We get up to 20 millimeters of coverage, horizontal and vertical. And we have about 500,000 data points, sagittal height measurements, and the accuracy, as Tom mentioned, is 2 microns on the cornea and 10 on the sclera. We are lab independent, like Tom says. That is the thing that sets us apart. We're also able to fit multimodality lenses. So image capture is the thing I get asked about the most, is how hard is it to get an image? And it's not that hard at all. We can do it in 3 steps, really. It's to pre-align the device and the patient. You're going to load the eye up with your lubricant and fluorescein and get those lids open nice and wide and shoot. Now we pre-align the patient and the device, because then you can move much faster once you have the fluorescein instilled. And that's really important, because we don't want fluorescein drying or the patient draining if they're having to keep their eyes open for a long time for you to get the device in line, or if they're blinking a lot and they're draining the fluorescein. So the pre-alignment is a huge time saver. The way that we get the device aligned is pretty easy. The patient will look at a crosshair, and you'll have a couple of reflection points as seen here. And you just want to get the 2 in the middle lined up for centration, and then 2 on the sides that are circled in red there. with is going to be your focus. It moves with the joystick a lot like an autorefractor or something like that. And as long as you get those circles nice and clear with pretty good centration, you're probably going to get a pretty good photo, with the expectation that you'll get really good lid retraction, which we'll go over as well. All right, so loading up the eye with lubricant and fluorescein, we do want to put a drop of lubricant in the eye. We always suggest something with hyaluronic acid in it because that will enhance the tear quality. You'll get better distribution of your fluorescein. And if you apply the fluorescein to this strip, and then to the eye, the lower lid, and the superior part of the eye, making sure you, of course, to avoid the cornea. You want to really just look at the eye and make sure that it's nice and yellow, even orange. You really can't get too much. I like to use 2 strips at one time and just wet both sides and really even turn the strip over to get the most fluorescein I can off that strip. So I get asked a lot if we can use fluoresce, and you can. It is very thin, though. It will not last long enough to get several images. So even to use fluoresce, because maybe you just want to numb the patient, you get a little bit bigger aperture when the eyes are numb, you'll still need to put at least 1 strip over it to make it glow long enough to get 3 shots. So a lot of us are having to work by ourselves and take images by ourselves without an assistant, or maybe you just want to run in there real quickly and get it done, and your technicians are working with other patients or something like that. It is very possible to do it by yourself. This sort of shows that. I know these aren't the best pictures, but you can kind of see what's happening here. The patient is pulling down on their bottom lid, and you would be reaching across to get the upper lid. Now, when you can use an assistant, use an assistant, because here's an example of the huge lid retraction we get when you've got another person holding the lids, one person holding lids, one person driving the instrument. We always get better lid retraction and better images that way. Then you just shoot the image. You're going to just real quickly, after you've put the fluorescein in, click the lights, make sure we have a dark room. When the patient goes back into the chin apparatus, you're tempted to start moving it around. You're tempted to think, well, I pre-aligned it, but now it's moved. But give the patient a second. If they need to blink a couple times, and then when they settle in, I think you'll find most of the time I'm a lot closer than I thought I was. And so I don't really have to do a lot of secondary adjusting to the instrument, which again is a time killer. So then you'll just hit the joystick. Top of the joystick has a button to fire. And we like to get 3 quick pictures. So in between each one, you can quickly have the patient do 1 complete blink, not blink, 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 but 1 complete blink while you can dry your fingers and reset the camera by just clicking the top of the joystick. We can typically get 3 really good shots in a matter of just a few seconds. Again, another question, I think I just really addressed it, but about how many images that we can take. You can take more than 3, but I don't recommend more than 3 at one time. If you do 3 images and then hit save, if you feel like you need to do more images, I would reload the eye before you shoot again. You're going to be losing fluorescein at that point. So even if you took more, I don't think that the last images would be good enough to keep anyway. So anytime you get a device in your practice, you're going to get a member of the Eaglet team, usually me, to come out and guide you through everything. We'll send you something ahead of time to let you know some of the recommended computer requirements and things like that that you're going to need to have on hand when we get there. But we give you plenty of time to prepare on your end. And we definitely want to set that upfront contract with you that, you know, we're there to get patients scanned, we're there to get you trained, we're there to give you real world applications, and we're going to give you a day in your practice or as much time as you can give us to really make sure that you are ready to go when we leave. We also like to do a lot of follow-up with TeamViewer or Hangouts, things like that, where we can screen share, look at images, see how you're doing. We also include a secure upload link that is HIPAA compliant for you to send images to us at any time. We have a couple of different help desks that I have noted down here. Those are definitely always made available to you. We are on a time difference with Holland, but we are able, between myself and Tom and the different people out there, we're able to get most questions answered within the business day. So I'm going to now leave my PowerPoint and just go into an image. Tom asked me to share a Penguicula image. Here it is. And just sort of show you some of the features here that this Penguicula is, you know, it's one of the things that I think is the hardest to not only fit, but to reproduce when you have that microvault or that custom lift in a lens. So if you can see here, I'm scrolling around right in the middle of that. I immediately am able to tell exactly how high this Penguicula is. You can see the location of it, not only from the center, but from the edge. And by simply moving the caliper from the top to the bottom, you can also see how wide it is. So now you have everything needed, height, width, and location to order that custom lens. I'm going to real quickly also run through a central cone because I have it open here and I want to show you this. There are so many things you can do with this type of image. Just looking at it immediately, you know you're going to be going for a certain type of landing. You know pretty much how high everything is. You've got a great image here. This is a 10 millimeter by 10 millimeter image. Anytime I scroll around on this image, I always have a box that tells me where I am, how high it is, and all these numbers are from the center. That's how far it is from the middle of the eye here. There are other maps that we can use, and I'm just going to quickly go through this one. This is a really great one to show the shape, and always make sure you're checking your tangent maps as well. These give a lot of great information here. We're able to show the HVID here. You can mark your pupil size if needed, or limbal area. You'll notice when I just sort of scroll over this area, I'm marking the corneal astigmatism. It's just going to show up because I'm scrolling over the SIMK box. But if I go down here, I can actually mark that if I want to see where it is on the eye, just like that. So I'm going to go back out and stop sharing my screen. Okay, here we go. Now, if there are any other questions for me, if not, then I'll turn it over to Dr. Richland.
Yeah, Kim, either you or Brad, I hope, is going to go through a first fit algorithm to show how we actually can define a lens.
Dr. Richland, are you there? Are you going to do that, or do you want me to do one?
I'll do a little of one. Because my Eaglet is loaded with all patient data, I kind of just took screenshots. So
okay.
I have a very rudimentary way of doing it, but I think it's going to really illustrate the power of the ESP.
If you want to try it, if we have any more questions, I can use one of my demo images to do one as well.
So I'll go ahead and share my screen. I've got one case that I want to talk about. Let me make sure this goes. And can everyone see my desktop now? Can you guys hear me?
Yes, but not everybody can talk back. So,
okay.
But we can hear you.
So one of the first things that I was trying to figure out with my Eaglet is, this is great. I've got all the data in the world now. I've got the coolest technology, but how do I use it? You know, we all have, we all have corneal topographers in our office, or I'm sure most of us do, but it still doesn't do everything for you. You still have to use it as a tool in your toolbox to get fits faster. And that is exactly what Eaglet does for us. And now I don't know how to work without it. It's been a blessing. And when I have a patient that doesn't want to sit forward or doesn't have wide enough eyes, I don't know how to fit sclerals anymore. It's that powerful. That's a joke. I can still fit sclerals, but it's so much easier. I'm not running into a fit blind I know everything about that person's sclera before I have to go into it. So this is an example patient. This was actually one of my first patients I fit. And for this particular scan, it's a very large diameter scan. So we've got all the data on the cornea that we need. On the lens fit algorithm, or how Eaglet lets doctors fit lenses, is you're allowed to pick the supplier. And they're great because they're lab neutral. And one of the best things about it is if you're a Boston person, you've got Boston in there. If you're a Blanchard, if you're a Synergize, if you're a Zen, they really have everything covered. And while this first fit algorithm can kind of tell you what to do by telling you which meridians to pick and the vault, you really, if you don't have a lens that's on there yet, I'm sure they'll add it, you still have all the data from the scans that can give you a clue to the toric sclera, a spherical sclera, and the sagittal height of the lens that you should pick. So for example, this patient here is keratoconic, mild, not very advanced, and I fit him with a Boston sight lens. I'll go into how I fit in a moment, because how I fit before Eaglet and how I fit after Eaglet has drastically changed. But just showing what goes into it and how powerful the Eaglet data is when you match it against your OCT that you're looking at the lens finally on the eye. So not to go into too much depth, but on the left-hand side, you can see I selected the supplier Boston sight. This is actually, I believe it's the right eye. And the diameter of this lens was picked as 18. The vault that was selected, or it anticipates, once that lens goes on the eye, that we have to take away 200 microns. Meridian 1, it wants me to go flat 100, 2, flat 200, 3, flat 200, meridian 4, flat 50. Meridians 1, 2, 3, and 4 represent 12, 3, 6, and 9 o'clock. So we have all the data. Eaglet has shown me what I should do. Let's see if it's right. Starting with the central vault. One of the most important things is that when we put a first trial lens on, the first thing we look at is not the edge, we look at the vault. And if the vault is right, we don't have to technically grab another lens. So it wanted me to grab a lens. I grabbed it, and it's telling me the vault's going to be a little too high. So let's see what the vault looked like. So I grab the lens, I throw it on the eye, and I think everyone can agree that is way too high. It's decentered, it's way too high. That is way too high for me. So what do? I ordered the lens. I took off 200 microns. So at least at insertion, I can assume I have 300 microns of vault centrally. And I let it settle. How did it look after the lens was ordered, given the Eaglet data straight through from the Eaglet? How does that look? So the Eaglet gives us the information on this bottom left kind of column regarding the vault and the meridians. If you're a Boston Sight fitter, you should be familiar with the Boston Sight Fit Connect, where you go in and you just select the meridians and you get to pick what you're going to fit. So with Eaglet, and especially with Boston Sight lenses, meridians 1, 2, 3, and 4, it cannot be more simple to take the Eaglet data directly into a Boston lens and fit it. So I just took the Eaglet data straight from it and ran with it. I ordered it exactly as it said I should. So with the lens parameter being dropped 200 microns and changing the edges, we're finally going to see what it looked like. Remember that when it first went in, the first trial lens, it was too high, 500 microns.
So Brad, I'm sorry, Tom, that was a diagnostic lens, right?
Yes, correct. This is only the diagnostic lens that I use to over-refract.
Good.
It was predicting that diagnostic lens needs to come down 200 microns. So I ordered the lens exactly as Eaglet described, and this is what I got. One caveat, this lens is the ordered lens with the haptics built in. You can see the centration is far superior. Not superior in terms of display superior, it's just better. That lens looks much more centered on the eye. The vault, this is after 8 hours. This was the design lens after the patient wore it. So the Eaglet, based on its original measurement of dropping that sag 200, ended up for me and my patient an end of day sag of 140. I thought that was unbelievable. That is a dream come true that I don't have to pick the sag. That's a dream come true that my first lens I grab for the patient is going to be what I, close to what I need. And it was wonderful. So
Brad,
yeah.
sorry, Brad, one more question. So between settling and flattening the haptics out, you would expect to see 160, 159 micron drop.
Correct.
Okay.
So some conjunctivas I find that are very squishy, I can get up to 200 or more.
Right.
If I have a younger patient with a more taut conj, sometimes I get less than 100 of settling. So the average I would say is about 150. And the Eaglet kind of nailed that. With the 500 initial lens, drop that down 200. I expect 300 initially. This lens then technically settled 160 microns after 8 hours. So it picked a lens, regardless of haptic, that did not touch the center of the eye. That's huge because I don't want to have to try multiple lenses on the eye just to realize that I have central touch. That's a waste of time. So the central vault, based off the Eaglet, sent to Boston site, that was and could not have been more spot on. Looking at the landing, I want to kind of show you what it said. So just a reminder, the Eaglet asked to flatten everything. It thinks once this lens goes on the eye, that meridian 1 at 12 o'clock needs to be flattened 100 microns. Meridian 2 at 3 o'clock needs to be flattened a little bit more, 200. Meridian 3, 200, which is at 6 o'clock, and Meridian 4 at 9 o'clock needing to be flattened a little bit. So I only did snapshots from the nasal and temporal edge. So you're really just going to be thinking about Meridian 2 and Meridian 4. And that corresponds to 3 and 9 o'clock, or nasal and temporal. So one of the first edges that I looked at, let's take a look, is this guy. So this is that nasal edge. That's the edge of the lens that it said it needed to be flattened by 200 microns. Now, depending on how many Boston Sight lenses you fit, or depending on how many times you've looked at lenses settling, that change of 200 microns, I didn't make yet. So this is only looking at the lens on the diagnostic. This was not the ordered lens with the ordered numbers put into it. I did not have a chance to scan it. But with that said, you can see that the Eaglet knew that that lens haptic needed to be flattened. And that 200 microns of flattening, I agree with. If you ask any of the Boston Sight consultants, they really want you to go from 100 to at least 150 when you're going to flatten an edge to really see a difference. And before I even had to look at it on the eye, I ordered it flat. This is the diagnostic lens that it knew was going to be too steep. And I think it nailed it on the head when it's telling me, hey, order this 200 flat, you're going to have a way better lens when you first get it. The Eaglet is literally my best friend here helping me fit. So that nasal edge, I think it did wonderful. It told me to go flat 200. The diagnostic lens on the eye looked steeped by 200. So that was another win for the Eaglet. Let's look at the other side, the temporal edge. Remember that temporal edge, it only wanted 50 microns of flattening. Now, if you look at this edge, it looks okay. I'm not going to lose sleep over this edge, even if I didn't change it. But how awesome is it that the Eaglet, before I even saw the patient, said, hey, by the way, that edge is going to need a little bit of flattening. And as you can see, I'm a slightly toed in, just a hair. I could come up a little bit. And I agree with it. I don't mind flattening out 50 microns. I think that'll settle very tangentially if I do that. So from the central vault, from the first lens picked from the edges, the Eaglet got me to my first lens right away. It has been invaluable. Now, it doesn't fit for you. It doesn't teach your patients how to put it in. It doesn't do anything other than be your tool in the toolbox that we didn't all realize we were missing. We've been fitting sclerals for a long time without scleral propylometry or topography, and we do it, but it's a trial and error process. You grab the first sagittal height lens in your fit set. I think a lot of people grab a 4400 just to start with, but we're trial and error, you know, back then, and now we don't have to be. I kind of think of it like, if you're going to refract someone, are you going to refract them with plus or minus 2 just to see what they are? Are you just going to trial and error it? Or would you rather take a measurement and then refine that measurement? So that's how I see this working. I don't just bring a patient in and then show them +2 and -2 and say, which one do you like better, and then work on it. That's how it used to be grabbing a trial scleral lens. Let's just grab one, see if it touches. If it does, make it go here. That's a waste of time. Now with the data that I get from the Eaglet, I can leverage that data to save me time. One of the last things I was going to show, I think it's kind of funny, is this. Time is money, but money can't buy time. The Eaglet will save everyone time. And time is the one thing in all of our practices that we wish we had more of. I no longer fumble trying to see which lens I'm going to throw on. It was great a year ago when I grabbed a lens, and the first lens I grabbed just so happened to vault the cornea. But nowadays, I don't have to worry about it. Nowadays, my staff, trained really well on it, can take the Eaglet scan, go for a measurement, selecting a lens, put that lens on the eye, make sure there's no central touch with an OCT, let it settle. And by the time I go into the room, I know the lens has not touched the eye, it's settling. I have all my scleral topography measurements or profilometry measurements. And really the only thing I need is an overfraction. And I'll admit this on the internet and for everyone, I have ordered a scleral lens for a patient just based off the AR. I had a patient come in who had no time. He said, I got to go in and out 30 minutes. And I said, that's not how we fit lenses here. And he said, well, if I have to come back, I will. And I said, fine, but 30 minutes isn't going to be it. My technician grabbed him from the waiting room and did the Eaglet. The Eaglet then told him which lens to grab. My staff grabbed the lens, put it on his eye. They did a central OCT scan to say and confirm that there was no central touch, that it wasn't 1,000 microns off the eye, and it wasn't only 100 microns off the eye. They let that patient settle for about 15 minutes. They did an AR over the lens. They sat the patient in the room. They let him look through the AR, and the AR gave him 20/20 vision. It was unremarkable. He then said, great, can I leave now? And I said, sure, but the next lens I really need to refine and I need to work with you. His lens came in. I based off all the lens scleral data off the Eaglet scan. I based the central vault off the Eaglet, and I based the over refraction based on the AR that I took, and it was wonderful. His first lens that came in, without me even fitting him, kind of letting the Eaglet do its thing, was very dispensable. And I say dispensable because it wasn't perfect vision and it wasn't a perfect fit, but it was better than my first lenses I was fitting. It's unbelievable the tool that you can have to save you time, because that first fit for me, for that gentleman, I didn't even fit him. And I don't know if that's fraud. I don't know if I'm going to get in trouble for that, because ultimately I did fit him, but it didn't take as much time. I don't have to be in the room selecting the lenses. I don't have to guess what vault to pick. I walk into rooms with sclerals on my first time patients, having already seen their scleral data, the OCT data, and I only need to refract. And sometimes the AR is very close, and I want the patient to get a good trial lens almost. I just want to order something quick, and then I'll refract and refine based off of that. So I can't say enough. And by the way, I think I should have started this talk off with I have no financial disclosures. I think that's important for a lot of the people listening. I wanted to share this testimony because I just believe in the technology. I can't do without it. Not anymore, I can't. And I just wanted to say thank you to the people over at Eaglet, because if you're a scleral lens fitter, we've been fitting in the dark, and now it's going to make your life so much easier. So with that, I'll hand it back to you guys.
Right, great presentation. Thank you. And yes, there is some financial obligation here. We're going to buy you dinner because this is a treat to have you on the line. So next time we're together, we'll pick up dinner. But anyway, I've invited, because Brad talked a little bit about Boston Sight Scleral, I've invited Karen Carrasquillo up on stage to see if she has any comments about, Brad, your case, or in general. Boston Sight is one of the what I refer to as the top 5 labs in the U.S. They've done a great job integrating the algorithm and developing it, helping us develop the algorithms. So in addition to Boston Sight, we've got Alden/Bausch & Lomb, we've got Synergize, we've got Blanchard, and we've got ABT. And those are what I would consider my top 5. Now the other algorithms are fine, and there's nothing wrong with them, but just in terms of the labs that are working aggressively with us, they fit the bill. So Karen, any comments?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thanks, Kim. And thanks, Bradley, for a great case. Good to hear. So, I mean, one of the things that I would say, working with Eaglet is over a year now. It's been a joy to work with you guys. I agree with Bradley. I think the technology that you guys are putting forth and, in hands of scleral lens fitters is amazing. I love the fact that you're lab neutral. We're fortunate to be one of the labs that have partnered with you guys, but we personally believe that, the more that you can help patients, the better. So allowing this technology to work for many designs or different designs is a great tool. We all want what's best for the patients. A quick comment about the algorithm that we have worked with Eaglet. I remember when we started working with you guys over a year ago, we were the first quadrant-specific design
Right.
to get on board. And you guys did a phenomenal job. It took over a year of troubleshooting this quadrant-specific design to make sure that the data that is being acquired from the Eaglet actually translates into a result like what Bradley is showing. Similar to Bradley, we have heard other testimonies from other clinicians where they're claiming this one and done. And this is amazing. And Bradley, I wouldn't feel bad. I mean, you are fitting the patient. This is just a tool to get you to that endpoint so much faster. And from there on, you and others, as well as we, we'll continue to manage the patient beyond that initial fit, right? So this is just an amazing tool for us clinicians to get to that endpoint much faster, much reliably. And it's just better for the patient. It's a better experience for the patient, and ultimately a better experience for us clinicians. So,
So Karen, I got a question for you, and Brad, jump in if you want to be on part of this as well. So you mentioned quadrant specific, relatively new technology. How difficult would it be to fit a quad with diagnostic lenses? Or in other words, flip it around, how much more simplified is the fitting with an Eaglet ESP? Because I think quads are the way the world's going.
It's amazing. I mean, I think one of the things that I didn't mention, and probably goes without saying for the clinicians that are on board tonight, is also the fact that, for example, in our case, Boston Side Scleral, it's, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's one of the few large lenses that you have. I don't know, we go up to 19, and we've done up to 19 millimeters with the Eaglet, and we have gotten this one and done with amazing results, from the algorithm. So not just the fact that you're getting the one and done, but now you're navigating and living in this large diameter space where we all know where the sclera is way more asymmetric. And to your point and question, Tom, navigating scleral toricity is one of the biggest concerns for many clinicians. And because it might take them not only longer, more, increased chair time, but definitely more lenses per eye. So if you want to, regardless of the diameter, but especially if you are concerned about the more asymmetric nature of the sclera in a larger diameter, but you want to offer the benefits of a large diameter because of comfort, because of coverage, because of weight distribution, etc., you have in the Eaglet, in the eye surface profiler, an amazing tool to get you there. And I think that's why it was so important for us to get on board and partner with you guys. And we're getting great results.
Great.
And then I'd like to add to that a little bit. All the companies are wonderful. There's not one lens for one, every patient. With that said, Boston Sight is very special. Boston Sight's right and left, lens fit sets allow you to have toric peripheries built into all their trials. That one thing alone, with having a trial lens with a toric periphery, allows you to see where that lens will rotate, find the flat meridian, which anyone here listening today or who will listen in the future, we all know that we oftentimes put front surface toric optics in a lot of these lenses. One of the downsides to that is if we only have a spherical lens to put a trial on, then when the patient comes back the next time and they need front surface toric, you have to rotationally stabilize that lens with toric haptics. So you're asking for an extra 1 or 2 lenses right off the bat, but you can negate that, one, by utilizing Boston Sight and their fit set because it already has toricity built in, but 2, you can order your first lens with toric haptics because the Eaglet has already warned you that you need it. So when I'm able to order toric haptics so that my first lens comes back rotationally stabilized, and then I just do another refraction, over refraction on top, and I know the lens will sit there, that just saved me a fit right away. Boston Sight kind of does that already with their fit sets being toric in nature, but the Eaglet takes it to the finish line with whatever company you use, or really the ones and dones with Boston. As you can see with my example, it was very close off that first design. But now if I would have ordered it with the Eaglet, with it all in together, that was a one and done lens. The truth of the matter is that I actually changed his lens. It wasn't a one and done because he was so thrilled with vision that I ended up doing mono vision. So I ended up changing one lens just to get him so he can read with his keratoconic eyes with no reading glasses on. The technology just complements each other greatly. If you want to spend less time, and time is money, than the Eaglet, or you need just some data to know the sclera. And the last thing I'll say to that is patients who have worn sclerals before know the process. You're going to come in, we're going to fit you, we're going to order a lens. 2 weeks later, you're going to come back, we're going to fit you. That might be good, but maybe you need another one. And it can go on for months where you're ordering lenses and they finally come back in. Time is a big constraint. And imagine if we're fitting on vision plans where we have 3 months of redos where we're allowed to send back to the lab. We can't spend any extra time. I need to fit that patient as soon as possible because if I need to order an extra lens, I don't want to have to do it outside my warranty. The Eaglet can save you chair time. It can save you cost of goods on lens time. It is invaluable, not to mention that when patients come to you and they've already been fit by another practitioner and you fit them in one try and their other doctor took 4 tries or 5 tries, it's not their fault. You have another piece of technology they didn't have. But guess who looks like amazing? Guess who looks like they're the best fitter in the world? You do. And right. It's really all about fitting healthier lenses quicker. And this provides that. And you look better to the patient, you save money, the patient has a healthier, better fitting lens. It is just a no-brainer, and I don't understand how people can operate without it. And Tom, you're right. In the next 5 years, fit sets are going to be out, and just empirical fitting and a lot of just these, algorithms, they're going to be king. The technology is smarter than what we can do, and we need to leverage that technology to provide better care to our patients and faster care.
And one thing I would add to that, Bradley, if I may, just quickly, Tom,
Sure.
is that, to your point about all these benefits to the patients and to your points about different designs, I just wanted to add a comment about different diameters. One of the things that we shared this case at the webinar in January post GSLS, and I believe we shared this case at the GSLS session with Eaglet. One case that we had a very dry eye patient, a graft versus host patient in the clinic, and we fitted her. We did an Eaglet scan. We ordered an 18.5 and it was a one and done. I mean, it looked great. The patient was super comfortable, but we were just wondering, what about, how good is this ESP and how good or reliable is this scan in predicting what that lens will be at different lens diameters? Will the reliability, the accuracy be as good if I go to an even larger diameter or if I go smaller? So with that one eye, just because the patient was game, we actually cut an 18 and we cut a 19, just to see how, reliable and accurate the algorithm that the ESP was predicting was. And it was amazing. So regardless of the diameter, the ESP predicted that one and done. So with that, I mean, I think I'll leave it to you guys to close, but yeah, it is a good technology. We're very pleased. And I must say that I don't have any financial disclosures either.
Well, Karen and Brad, we really appreciate your input, and I think it's taken to a third degree that to have this input from real practitioners that are using this instrument and how they're using it and how much they like it. But we got about 15 minutes left. We're going to try to make sure we cut it off under an hour. I'd like to invite Kim back up on the stage. She wanted to just quickly show you a cone and a little bit of information about how you would do a cone.
Okay. All right, we got it. Everybody see my screen?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. All right, so I was going to just show real quick just the central cone, very obvious central cone here, how we would fit that. So I'm going to click the first fit lens button, and this is very reactive to your Wi-Fi. So however fast your Wi-Fi is how fast this is going to load. It is all cloud-based. So I just chose B&L and Zen. It came up with an RC15.4, and obviously I don't want to use that for this particular map. So I'm going to choose a Zen 17, and that's, again, a decision that I'm going to make as a clinician, and I'm doing that based on looking at the HVID, which is down here in the right-hand corner down here at 12.6. So based on that, I'm going to go to a 17, and I'm going to calculate. It's going to tell me what lens that I should put on the eye to over refract. And here we go. So it's telling me to go choose a 5100 7.4 with a steep 8, steep 9 out of my fitting set in order to do the over refraction. Now it's going to offer up everything that Zen has to offer, even if that's not in your fitting set. So then you'll need to get as close as you can to this 5100. One way we can check that over here in the sagittal height calculator, top right, I'm going to click in that 17 chord, and it's going to give me some numbers here. This 360-degree number here is basically showing us we have a 4,800 micron central cornea there. And based on the fitting algorithm or the fitting philosophy of the Zen lens, it's gone ahead and added in 300 microns. That's how we come up with our 51 over here. And that is adding in a couple hundred for vault and settle. So that's one way we can go back and look at that. You can also use that sagittal height calculator from your results tab. So for instance, before I had calculated this lens, I have that same sagittal height calculators in a different location down here on the kind of the bottom left. Again, if I wanted to look at my HVID of 12.6 and decide I want to use a 17 millimeter lens, then it's going to give me those numbers again. And those numbers are great for using if you are going to order something that maybe we don't have the fitting algorithm in our system just yet. That, along with some of these other maps, I'll show you very quickly that there are. Yeah, I showed earlier there was a tangent map, but there's also quad maps and other maps that can be used to send to your labs and consultants. And I'll just real quickly say one more thing to that about the labs and manufacturers we work with. We're adding manufacturers and lens designs all the time, but we make a concerted effort to get at least one person, if not multiple people at those labs, trained up on how to use these maps, so that as you're fitting their lenses with this device, they've got somebody there who's educated, and you can send them your MSR file, you can send them your data, and they can help you. They know that you're an Eaglet based fitter, and they can help you fit using your maps. So in that, I think that answers some of the questions about how to just take an image and choose a lens and fit, just showing a different example. If there's any other questions about that, just shoot it over there and I will answer it.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to be quick, make sure that I end before 10 Eastern. And what I want to do is go over a couple of points, lab neutrality and then lens list, and then the ROI. So as I mentioned earlier, we have more than 35 lens designs. Actually, we have 37 right now. And that's constantly growing. And again, as we learn more about the sclera through devices like this, and as designs take that into account, we have to catch up with labs and make sure that we have representation of their new and latest features of their designs, so that you can work with them. And round it goes. So the majority of labs worldwide want to work with us, and they want to have algorithms in our device. So we segment between software, which is what Kim was going through, the Eaglet software. And then when you pick a lens design to see what it recommends, that's an algorithm. So it's just a nomenclature issue. So we have a lot of lens designs. So let's take a look at the list. Okay, here we go. So lenses that can be fitted with ESP. We've got, well, there's a long list. I'm not going to read it all off. You guys can see it. ABB, Aculens, ABT, B&L, Blanchard, Boston Sight, Cooper. And we also have, in addition to sclerals, we have hybrids, soft, ortho-K, and corneal GPs. So there's a wide variety of lenses. Mark Innovate, Microlens, Presslens, Synergize, Yuko, Ultravision, Valley, and Excel, and more to come. So that is the lens list, constantly updated. And let me jump back over to my presentation. So I hope that that gives you an idea of the scope. I'm sorry, next step. So, sorry, I'm jumping ahead. Eaglet ESP return on investment. So in this model, I'm going to show you what I did is I surveyed the ESP users in the US that we have, and they all agree that something like going from 3.5 lenses per eye to 1.5 lenses per eye, not immediately. There's a learning curve here with ESP. It's pretty short, but anyway, over time, you're going to go something like 3.5 to 1.5. It's all different for everybody, but everybody was in agreement that was a relatively close guess. And it's going to, what that means is going to free up much time for you and your team. And so let's take a look at the example. So what I've done is I have a section for fitter input. So if anybody wants to see this for theirs, give me a call or email me and we'll do it. But I'm assuming 2 scleral fit in the current situation without the ESP, 2 scleral fits a week, $1,500 per fit. Average time per visit is 45 minutes. So the average visits per fit is, I'm guessing, 4.5. I added the initial plus first plus free fits. Now you could take that down to 3.5 and take this one down to 1.5, and the numbers would work out the same way. So I'm sorry if I'm confusing you guys, but the numbers work either way, 4.5 to 2.5 or 3.5 to 1.5. So the total time per fit is 3.375 hours. And the revenue per hour is $444, and the revenue per week is $3,000. 2 fits at $1,500 each. So add the ESP. Well, this all stays the same, right? All this original stuff. And then with the freed up hours, the 3 freed up hours, because your hours have shortened down to 1.875 per fit, you freed up time which also means I can use that 3 hours to fit X more patients. So 3 divided by 1.875 means I'm going to fit a few more patients. So the potential revenue from the freed up hours is 2,400. So I started with 3,000, and just by buying the instrument, I picked it up to 2,400. And I obviously am assuming that scleral patients are waiting, and if they're out there, and if they're looking to get in as soon as they can. So potential revenue from the ESP freed up hours per year is $124,000. Now, you could take these things in half or quarter them. If you guys have a small practice and you're trying to build your specialty lens practice, quarter these numbers. And let's talk about, $31,000 a year. Your ROI is something like somewhere between 2 to 12 months, depending on the size of your practice and how much pent-up demand you have for scleral lenses. But it's well within a year. And when I did this, I was kind of blown away by what basically what Brad was saying about freed up time and time is money. I think you can argue with the numbers, but this is probably a little bit of an aggressive case. But if I can pay for the unit in less than a year, I think that's great. And I hope you agree. So I will finish up by giving you the next steps. We're going to be at ICSC next month. And if you're going, we'll see you there. If you're thinking about going, come on down. It's a great meeting. We're looking to kick off a big city demo tour, and that's once a month. We'll be in a different large city, setting up an evening demo session at a hotel or somewhere like that. The kickoff may be AAO, and that might be the first place. Maybe Boston. I don't know, but we'll let all you guys know. You're all on my list. We can easily set up one-on-one demos. We obviously did a demo here, but it's more personal, more back and forth chatter, and to get into your issues. So we'd be happy to do one-on-one online demo. We can easily send you a quote. So any of the above, simply email us, and my email is tom.schoen@eagleteye.com. Kim is kimberly.grizafi@eagleteye.com. And we thank you for joining us this evening. And I also want to reach out and thank Bradley for his input. He's always great in these settings. And Karen for stepping up and me catching her off guard. So thanks, guys. Thanks, everybody. And we'll be talking to you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.